So here are some of the basic truths. And these basic truths are true only because of this one thing. The basic truths that I'm about to share with you are only true because people are suffering from this amnesia, right? So they have forgotten what is true and good about themselves. And so now we are in a system that exploits the fact that we have amnesia, but also reinforces our reliance on the system to get back what we need or what we think that we need. And so because people have forgotten about their humanity, we typically are looking for humanity in other places. We're looking for ways to replace our humanity with something that can be purchased. And the system does a really good job of encouraging that kind of behavior as opposed to really challenging us to think about that and say, really, do I need, a 20,000 square foot home? Do I need, 2 additional cars? Do I need the boat? Or, how much money is enough for my family and for our goals? And because the system doesn't want us to critically think about that stuff, we don't. And so we typically just respond and we act in accordance to where we think that we are. And so these truths are only sought after because people have forgotten what is true and good about them. And so here are a few truths that I'd like to share with you. First is that human beings can learn, change, and grow. That we are constantly learning and adapting to our environment and to our context and to our temporal status, to our corporeal place in the universe. And so we're constantly learning and changing and adapting to the context as the context changes. And, there is a reason why the dinosaurs are not here. And they're here because they could not adapt, they could not change, they could not grow, and in some ways they couldn't learn to deal with the changing context. And so as human beings, we have that ability. And no matter what we see to the contrary in terms of people's behavior, because it seems like some folks will never change, but they always have the ability to change. Sometimes whether they do or not, but the ability is always there for us to change and learn and grow and develop ourselves. The second truth is that people do what they think works, even when it doesn't work. And, it's difficult sometimes for us to put ourselves in other people's shoes to recognize, well, why are they doing that? Why do they have that way of thinking? Or why do they use those particular behaviors? Well, the first thing that we have to recognize about human behavior is that we build on successes. We also build off of failures, but primarily what we're trying to do is replicate our successes. And so if a person is doing something, they're typically doing that thing because it has been successful in the past. And because we build on scaffolding, or our learning is built on top of learning and built on top of learning and built on top of learning, what people will typically say to themselves, maybe not consciously, but certainly subconsciously, that if this behavior has worked in the past, and I'm in a new situation that is relatively similar to my past experience, that if that behavior worked in the past, then given this new situation, all things considered, that this behavior should be effective currently, which also means that if it's been effective in the past, and I believe that it will be effective in my present, then it also should be effective in my future. And so people can learn, change, and grow, and people do what they think works even when it doesn't. And so why do they continue to do something even though it's not working currently? Well, part of the reason is they may not have recognized that it's not working currently. So, and then the other part for us to recognize and realize is that sometimes people are getting things out of their behavior that may not necessarily be something that I understand. And this next point will really kind of tease that out, which is that all human behavior is goal directed. So people do things because it is helping them to achieve some kind of goal. They're getting something out of this behavior. And so all human behavior is goal directed. Now, one of the things that we have to ask ourselves is, what is this goal? And all too often we get caught up in the affects of goal achievement and not really focusing on goal achievement. And I will tell you that once you help someone achieve their goal, or you engage them in a process of at least trying to identify what their goals are, as opposed to giving them goals, they're much more compliant, much more likely to engage you, much more likely to help with the heavy lifting, if you will, right? So it is, and it starts to answer this question: what's in it for me? I find it interesting that in a lot of diversity trainings that I've been a part of as a participant, or that I've watched, or even some of the curriculum that I engage in as an observer, I find it very interesting that people typically can't answer for white people, what's in it for me? Why is this diversity thing important to me? And I like to say, if we can't address that simple primary question about what's in it for me, then maybe there's nothing in it for me. If we can't articulate to our employees, to our coworkers, why certain systems and certain ways of being are important to engage full compliance and full participation, then we should be asking ourselves, what's wrong with that? If I can't give a good example of to why this is important, then I should be challenging that myself. And then lastly, attitude is a reaction to a goal. And I mentioned earlier in the other point that all human behavior is goal directed. Part of what we need to ask ourselves is, what is the goal? And one of the things that I have learned is that attitude is a side effect of goal accomplishment. So in a simple way to think about this is, if you go back to your own childhood, and I'm sure that there has been some example of this being played out in your own life, where you've engaged an adult, you've asked an adult for permission to participate in some kind of activity, and the adult gives you a negative response. They say, no, you cannot participate that. And then they give you a litany of reasons why. Some may be legitimate and some may not necessarily be so. But they give you a litany of reasons why you can't participate in that. And the natural reaction, at least the natural reaction for me, was that I would be told that I have a negative or bad attitude. And so, after a while, I really tried to think about what that meant when people would say you had a bad attitude. And what I came to was that when I did not receive what it was that I had either hoped for, desired, worked for, I would have a bad attitude. That my emotional response, my physical demeanor would reflect the fact that I was not able to achieve my goal. At the same time, if I went to that adult and they looked at me and they said, you've complied with everything, you're on top of what we need you to be doing, and they said yes to my request to either do or go someplace, then my attitude would be a different attitude because I had achieved my goal. And so when we see people with a bad attitude, one of the things that we know about them for sure is that they're not getting what they want. They're not reaching their goal. And so part of our job as leaders, as managers, as teachers, as guides, as instructors, is and helpers, is to help people achieve their goals. And so that can take two forms, right? So what if someone so the easiest thing to do to help someone reach their goal is to aid them. Right? So in whatever way that we can aid them, that will help them change their attitude, ultimately allowing them to reach their goal. But what if someone has a goal that is outside of my responsibility? They have a goal that I can't really help them with. They don't have the resources, the ability to manage that that behavior, then what becomes my responsibility? Well, my responsibility to them is to help them find a new goal. Because if I set a goal for them, then the success or the failure of that goal will be attributed to me. And it's so funny, particularly when I've worked with students or counselors or other folks in the helping professions, they'll ask me what I think, or they want me to tell them what to do. And I resist that, because once I do that, what that does is that takes the power away from them and gives it to me. And so all too often people want you to tell them what to do so that they don't have to take responsibility for the success or the failure. Because both of those, both success and failure, when you are accountable, makes it so that you have no more excuses on why things did or did not work. And so those become some important things to think about. And so when we think about these truths about human beings, we know that human beings can learn, change, and grow. We know that people do what they think works even when it doesn't work. We know that all human behavior is goal-directed, and that human beings and that attitude is a reaction to a goal. An attitude is not actually a thing, but it is a side effect of a thing.